bookworms? I'm Becca, and today I'm doing another episode of Pages and Popcorn where I talk about a book and its corresponding TV show or movie adaptation. Obviously from the title of this you can tell I'm going to be talking about 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher and its brand new Netflix original series. 13 Reasons Why is a story that's very near and dear to my heart. It was a very influential book for me to read during my early teenage years. So when I heard about the Netflix show coming out, I was understandably a little bit concerned. Would a TV series really be able to do this complex story justice? The short answer is absolutely. I'm just gonna start off by giving a brief spoiler-free comparison before delving into some deeper details. Overall, the core story did remain the same. We mainly follow Clay, who receives a package containing 7 cassette tapes. When he listens to them, he realizes that they are made by a classmate of his, Hannah Baker, who killed herself just a few weeks prior to the story starting. On these tapes are 13 reasons, basically, why Hannah decided to take her life. Each story, for the most part, deals with a different person, and if you find yourself listening to these tapes, then you are one of the reasons. From here, the Netflix show does veer off from the book in a lot of different ways, but author Jay Asher has spoken out and said that these changes don't bother him at all because they were able to keep the main message the same. I really enjoy the Netflix show because we are able to see more of how the tapes affected the other people besides Clay, how her parents were affected, and basically get a lot more background information and insight. I mean, I didn't realize it, but the book is only 288 pages long. I don't know how I missed that, but honestly, when you're talking about some of the books we have out nowadays, that is nothing compared to some of the stuff that we read. I do wish that I had chosen to reread this book before watching the Netflix show just because I didn't realize how much would be different, and I feel like if I would have chosen to reread the story and give my mind a little bit of a refresher, then the book could have had a bigger impact on me than it did after I finished watching the show, because this is one of the rare occasions where I think that the adaptation is a little bit better than the book. Now, the rest of the video is going to contain some major spoilers for the book and the TV show, so if you haven't read and watched 13 Reasons Why, I highly recommend that you go do that, so you should probably stop watching now. Starting right off, I really don't think that better actors could have been chosen for these roles. The majority of the main cast are unknown actors, which is really refreshing going into a story like this, because a lot of the times when you get actors that you see in a lot of things, it's easier to associate them to those roles and harder to take them seriously, especially in a storyline like this. And there were a lot of characters added as well, like Jeff and Hannah's parents. A lot of the parents really were non-existent in the book, so I thought that those added characters really blended into the rest of the cast, and none of them felt like they were out of place at all. It's really strange because plot-wise, the book is so much different from the show. I mean, even the overall story timeline in the book, Clay listens to all of the tapes all at once, all in one night, whereas in the show, he obviously spreads them out over the course of several weeks. And as a result, in the book, I did feel like I wanted a little bit more from the characters. Part of that is probably because I had seen the show before rereading the book, and so I already had all of that information, and I wish that the book would have pushed it a little bit further, but I understand that it could not have, because of the nature of the story and the fact that we really were only following Clay. I was able to reflect on it, and I realized that the writing reminded me a lot of other books that I probably was into around the time of being 14 or 15, like John Green books, and I see that in the book it's really easy for Hannah's character to be perceived as a manic pixie dream girl because we are only following Clay, and we've come to find out that Clay is kind of holding Hannah up on this pedestal a little bit because he has had a crush on her and was never able to find the words to tell her how much he really cared about her. So it's really interesting to look at it with fresh eyes as an adult because this story is not typically one that I would pick up now. So I was definitely glad to see that the show took a vastly different approach, and we were able to see that Clay and Hannah had a more involved relationship, I guess you could say, than in the book. They were at least acquaintances in the show, hung out on several different occasions, and it made it a little bit more heartbreaking when you come to realize that Clay had so many opportunities where he could have seen the warning signs that Hannah was putting out, and he just didn't. One thing going off of that kind of bothered me about the show is that because we got this extended storyline where it was taking place over the course of several weeks, there was an added court case that was in it, there was just so many added details and elements to the story. I feel like one message that's kind of important ended up getting lost, and that's the message that if you see something or suspect that something isn't right, it is so important to speak up because you don't know who you could be helping, who you could be saving, and I really feel like that message was lost because, again, we saw kind of a more typical teenage approach where all of these teenagers were really struggling to deal with the events that were unfolding, and they didn't want to get anyone else involved. And it is so frustrating as an adult to look back and watch that and just want to scream and say, just tell somebody. Why don't you just tell somebody what is going on? It really got to me, especially because over the course of the show, you were able to see more characters kind of deteriorate. And if any of them would have just stepped up and came forward and said what was going on before the last episode, a lot of things could have been avoided. So as an adult, like I said, it was so frustrating to see that this message that I feel is one of the more important messages of the overall story was really being lost because they chose to stick with a more teenager-y way to play out this story, which I get, I really get, because that's the demographic that you're playing to, but at the same time, at what cost? Also, going off of that stereotypical cliche YA thing that we see so often with the teenagers dealing with all of the issues is that the parents were either extremely passive, like Clay's mom and dad kind of were very passive, or they were completely non-existent, like we see with Bryce. His parents weren't there at all, and then we just had other characters that felt like they couldn't open up to their parents had no idea, and it was just so frustrating. Again, I know I'm saying that a lot, but it was incredibly frustrating because you just knew that if they would have just come forward, if they would have just asked for help, that things could have been different, things could have played out differently. So other than that being extremely frustrating, there's a few minor details that left me complaining at a lot of different episodes, like how do all of these students have tattoos? There was probably like 5 or 6 of them. Mainly a lot of the jocks had a lot of tattoos, and some of the characters had very visible tattoos that they just exposed at school. So how was this a thing? I don't know. Maybe times have changed a little bit since I've been in high school, but it really was not that long ago, and I just could not wrap my mind around that at all. Also, can we just talk about the cut above Clay's eye? It was so annoying because it felt like it was a really bad cut and he should have went to the hospital and got stitches, but instead it was just kind of left to heal over the course of all of the episodes. The bruising was different in every episode. I feel like because they were using it to show continuity, that when he had the cut it was the present, whereas if he didn't have the cut it was a flashback, they had to keep coming up with ways for the cut to not be healing properly. Like, he got hit in the head with a ball during gym, I think, and also when he was rock climbing in that scene with Tony, a rock fell and hit him in the head in the same spot and reopened that wound. So I don't know, it was just very strange. I feel like it was a little cheesy, and they probably could have figured out a very much better way to show continuity. I do feel like they tried to do it a little bit with the lighting. I watched this with Josh, and he also pointed out that the lighting did shift between it being present day and a flashback, but possibly it wasn't having the effect enough because there were so many fades to and from the transitions from flashbacks into present time that maybe they did feel like they needed something a little bit more concrete to tie in that it was a flashback or it was present day. So I get why the choices were made, but I would have done it a little bit different. I can always appreciate that because it was a Netflix show, we were able to get graphic in a way that you just can't get from a movie and can't get from a book. And the added scene of Hannah actually doing it and committing suicide was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever watched. And then her mom came in and found her. I was sobbing, because that's not something that you get in the book. You don't get this side of the story, and it's so important because I do feel like it's a side that's completely glossed over in so many stories like this. So I really, really applaud Netflix for having the courage to go there with the story. There is so much that I could say about this show. I loved it. I loved it so much. I loved the atmosphere that the show created. I loved how all of the added elements enhanced the story. Going into this, like I said, I was really concerned, but after watching the show, it was above and beyond anything that I ever could have dreamed of for this show. And I am so thankful and so grateful that the show now exists and can reach a whole new generation. And those are my thoughts and feelings about 13 Reasons Why, the book, and the Netflix original TV show. I really hope that they decide to do a second season because they left it completely open for a second season. And I can't wait to see what is going on in the future of this story. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought about the adaptation. Do you think that it did a good job of the book? Do you think it was better than the book, or do you still think that the book reigns supreme? I would really like to know. If you like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below to see more bookish videos. That's all I got for you guys today. I'll see you next time.